Review! Alright, Netflix's latest talk of the town is Adolescence, written by Jack Thorne and Stephen Graham and directed by Philip Baratini. So it's a 4-part miniseries about Jamie, this 13-year-old kid who has been arrested under suspicion of murder. The show focusing on family life, the environment at school, and the general life and influence of young males. Now the show in general is excellently produced and fantastically acted as well. Standout performances coming from Stephen Graham, Ashley Walters, and Erin Doherty. We also get a debut performance from Owen Cooper, this 15-year-old kid who plays the main character, and he actually pulls off a very solid performance. Not necessarily in terms of like emotional range or subtleties in his performance, but more in that he has to stay in character for takes that last up to an hour and going through a lot of different emotions and remembering that many lines for that long of a time. And I mean, that's gonna be difficult for any actor, but especially for such a young debutant, right? Well, yeah, about that, the show is entirely in one take. So it's 4 episodes and every episode is in one take. And from the research that I've done, it seems like it's a genuine one take. So we're not talking like Birdman or 1917 where they're doing clever cuts in between. Here's like genuinely one take, the entire thing. And that's of course endlessly impressive, but funny enough for different reasons for every episode. So for example, episode 1, the pilot, starting off at the family's house and going to the police station, actually traveling whilst it's still being in one take, and then going in between so many different rooms at the police station and having so many different actors and extras involved must have been a nightmare to plan out. But I think the most impressive one is actually episode 2, because then we spend it in between a lot of different rooms at the school, then moving in between so many different rooms in there, and every room contains about 20 to 30 or so kid extras. Now already working with child actors is difficult, but having around 20 or 30 of them in every room you move in between, and also moments where it is that you're pulling together hundreds of these kids. I can't even imagine what that must have been like. Like logistically planning out and arranging it with hundreds of kid actors and making sure that everything is choreographed and done to a T is very, very impressive. It cannot have been an easy challenge for them to do. And having this handheld shot going in between so many different rooms, then running outside and away from the school premises, and then that capping off to the camera going from handheld, being mounted onto a drone or something, flying to another location and then going handheld on that location. It's quite mind-blowing to see the thing, in all honesty. And same thing in episode 4, where it's going from handheld in the house to mounting it at the front of a car, taking it off the car and moving around to this hardware store, then going inside the car, going home and moving around over there. It's, it cannot have been easy to pull off. Now I actually had a realization around halfway through the first episode. I actually have just thoroughly enjoyed every character I've seen on screen so far. Both in terms of like competence and likability in general with everyone. Like the police officer Bascom coming in and ensuring the family and making sure that everyone is doing okay and everything is happening like it's supposed to be. And the lawyer coming in and supporting them in a lot of different regards and being very reassuring to them. Then also this officer who is checking in this kid who is arrested for suspicion of murder, and him just being very calm and still going through everything and being quite reassuring to him. I just found myself just liking all characters that I'm seeing on screen, something that unfortunately is quite rare in storytelling in general nowadays. Now this show seems to be resonating a lot with its audience for a few different reasons. It's of course a very relevant subject that they're talking about when it comes to toxic masculinity, role models for young males, loneliness, suicide rates, and distant family relationships. Apparently a lot of parents that have seen this show have felt compelled to kind of, after the show, approach their sons and, you know, just checking in and be like, hey, you doing okay? And I think that kind of speaks to the power of the show, the subject matter that they're dealing with, and the very mature approach to it. It really is that powerful of a show. So, why am I not satisfied? Well, frankly, I wanted more. I wanted more time to develop a few different things and characters in between everything. I would have wanted more backstory to a lot of things that were happening and characters in the show. I would have wanted a larger understanding of the legal process and everything that gets revealed and what that means for Jamie's case. And more on who Katie was, for example. Now, to be clear, I do recommend the show. We're talking very, very high quality of production. It's fantastically shot and it's very impressive with the one-take things that I was mentioning. It has a very, very strong story that has a very gripping and emotional core to it. Very strong characters and cinematography all throughout. And in general, it just brings up a lot of things that's very interesting to talk to people in your surroundings after the show is done. But for me to explain why I think it's more of a 7 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10, I kind of have to go into spoiler territory, so you have your warning right there. Okay, for starters, who was Katie? Was she a bully? I mean, it said that she was a bully towards Jamie exclusively, and that it was only because he asked her out that one time. But that's also only Jamie's side of the story. So outside of his version, we don't know if there's a reality where he spurred on these attacks a little bit more than just asking that question that one time. Or if it was that Katie was just a bully in general towards more people than just Jamie. Or if it was that she was an innocent victim in this whole thing. How did all the other students react to her passing away and also hearing the theories that it was Jamie who did it? Was Katie popular before those photos got leaked? Did she get popular afterwards? There's a lot of questions that I have around Katie's character that I just don't feel like was brought up whatsoever. And this is also so weird to me because D.S. Misha does say at one point...
Do you know what I don't like about all this?
Go on.
Right, the perpetrator always gets the front line. A man raped a woman. We followed Jamie's brain around this entire case. Right?
Yeah.
Katie isn't important, Jamie is. Everyone will remember Jamie, no one will remember her. That's what annoys me.
Now that's a very ironic set of words coming from a show that chose not to characterize the main victim in any substantial way. I almost feel like they tried to characterize Katie a little bit through the eyes of Jade, her best friend. But I felt like if that was the approach, then I felt like both that and also Jade's character were quite underdeveloped to begin with. Not through lack of acting though, because I do think that the actress of Jade pulls in a very solid performance. And I think I'm also just severely lacking context in the whole court case. We know that Jamie is guilty given that we have the video and also the things that he more or less confessed to towards the shrink with the things that he said then. But then in the last episode it plays off, I can't remember if it was 10 or 12 months later, but quite a lot of time has passed, right? And then he tells his dad and in turn his family that he's gonna change his plea to guilty. Now, we don't know what his plea was before. We don't know what this change will mean for the court case. We don't know what sentence he was supposed to get earlier. We don't know what sentence he's gonna get now. What does this change mean for his case? And also, he's 13, maybe he's turned 14 at this case, but he's still a minor, so what significance is that gonna have in the whole court case? I actually really think that we would have benefited a lot from one flashback episode. Because then if we have a flashback episode maybe earlier in the day before the killing happened, or just sometime just before, then we could have seen the interactions between Jamie with Tommy and Ryan. We could have seen what their relationship was like to each other, and also given some characterization to Tommy and Ryan as well, and seeing how the three of them influence each other in a lot of ways. We also could have gotten some sort of characterization to Katie's character, and maybe explaining a little bit more of what it was that provoked Jamie to stab Katie. Misha even says that they have all the evidence that they need, and then Bascom retaliates with saying that he still doesn't have a motive. They don't know why it was that Jamie chose to stab Katie. And we kind of leave the whole show without knowing. We haven't really gotten any motive other than maybe he was provoked by bullying or something like that, but it didn't seem like it faced him that hard from what we saw at least. And that's something that probably could have been explained in some sort of flashback episode. Now I do want to clarify here, a lot of the fun that we're having with the show and talking about it right now is with speculating on the meaning and the purpose and a lot of things about the show. And I've seen a lot of people saying that being given more episodes or more time to the show would remove a lot of that speculation that we're doing right now. Now that's not what I want. I want to clarify this. Now, when we are speculating about the show, then we're thinking of things like, was Katie a bully? Did Ryan play a part in the killing other than just providing the knife? Did he know what was going to happen when he provided the knife? Did Jamie subscribe to the manosphere ideologies? And I think that having been provided more context and more scenes, that instead would have transformed over into us speculating about why did Jamie stab Katie? What was the motive that he had for doing so? Was Jamie influenced by his friends of Tommy and Brian? Was he influenced by the bullying? Why was it that Katie was bullying Jamie and everything like that? So I want more scenes and more time out of the show so that we can have a little bit broader speculations and discussions of what it was that was happening and what the meaning was of everything. Just before getting flamed in the comments that adding more scenes would remove the mystery of a few things, because that's just not what I want. Now, episode 3, which seems to be the most famous episode of the show, does reveal a lot of the skewered views that Jamie has and a lot of the inner conflicts that he is going through. All of that is being communicated through some quite fantastic screenwriting, to be honest. And it even leads to, after Jamie not saying exactly what it was that he did, but he was saying how he was feeling and what he was thinking after the incident happened. And even leaves the shrink feeling quite mortified and disgusted about everything that he said, and she can't even touch the leftover sandwich that he has left on the table. But also in this episode and the discussion that they're having, it does shed a light a little bit on the distance in between Eddie and Jamie. How Jamie is skipping out on PE without telling Eddie anything about it. Now Jamie could tell that Eddie was embarrassed about him during football games and stuff like that, when it was that the dad couldn't even look look at him, right? And that then also leads over to a very powerful conversation that we get towards the end of episode 4. And it kind of encapsulating a lot of the central themes of the show. How Eddie was beaten hard by his dad as a kid, and then when he became a parent to Jamie himself, he wanted to have a more soft and loving approach. And maybe that leading into him giving Jamie too much freedom, and Jamie not being granted any discipline or proper guidance. So instead it ended up with him being influenced by the internet, by his bullying, or the environment in school. But the show also makes it quite clear that you can't really put any blame on Eddie and Manda for this. And it's probably my favorite line in the whole show when it is that Eddie says,
I'll set the table. Thank you.
How's it we make you, Eddie?
Same way we made him.
and there's a lot to think about and discuss with that whole thing, because I myself was someone who thought for a long time that your parents kind of dictate how you're going to become as a kid. It's all because of the upbringing of your parents. But as I've gotten older, I've started to realize that human development is way too complex to be able to pin it on one event or one situation or one person or something like that. And unfortunately, way too complex to pin it on any parents, which is something that the show kind of portrays perfectly in this instance. You have a similar upbringing in between Lisa and Jamie, and of course them turning out drastically different from one another. So, what do I think of Adolescence? Well, I think it's a very relevant and interesting show with a lot of very strong and interesting thematic elements of it. Some very strong and likable characters. Some super solid acting throughout the whole thing. Except for one prison guard. It's also paced fantastically, which is quite insane to think about, because usually during a project it is the editor that kind of dictates the pacing and how everything is flowing in story. But of course, when everything is in one take, you don't have the benefit of having an editor that can pace it out. So the fact that it is as well paced as it is, and being able to go from intense to intimate to dramatic to mellow to heartfelt without it feeling too choppy or messy is extremely impressive to me. All in all, is very solid. The only thing dragging it down being that it's too short and too underdeveloped in a few different areas. And unfortunately, it does leave a lot to be desired from it. In totality, I think I would probably land between a 7 and an 8, so a 7.5 out of 10. Definitely worth a watch, and discuss it with some friends. There's a lot of interesting things that can be pulled from it.
The well-being of planet Earth. Oh, fuck's sake.
These fries are unequivocally fucking busted.
Unequivocally fucking best.
We can go to skin tone and we can make him green.
Oh my god!
Now he's green! Oh, yeah, sure.
Dude, there are so many elements to the production of this that's beautiful. Oh. Ong.
Are you the Avatar, Ong?